Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Ron Strobel, and I've missed all of you. Where were you?
Looking for you.
This is almost as good as palm trees and cactus and all that stuff. But anyway, we are here this morning, and our invocation is by Phil Tobin.
Thank you, Ron. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
It's a cold day out there. Heavenly Father, bless this gathering of our members. We ask that the four-way test be the bond that keeps us together. Help us to realize how much we mean to each other and how much our efforts can go towards making our world a better place. May others always feel welcome at our meetings, and may our good works inspire them to become members of our club. Lord, we ask this blessing on your food, on this food, and help us to prepare ourselves to be better services to our community. In your name we ask it. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Phil. And just to see if I remember how to do it, please follow me in the pledge and the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And now to lead us in song, Dick Pearsall. This is the part I've missed. the most?
Well, we missed St. Patrick's Day last weekend because of the snow and all. But I do have but I do have some late breaking news. Russia has hacked Ireland, but all they got were the words to Irish Stars are smiling. So we're going to sing that this morning. When Irish eyes are smiling, like a flag of morning spring, in the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world is bright and gay. Here it comes. But when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they'll sing your heart away. You did it. You got it.
And our president, Dave Basil.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, fellow Rotarians.
Good morning, David.
Thank you for your understanding and patience last week. Mother Nature just didn't seem to want to cooperate, and we had to make the call early enough to accommodate speaker plans and everybody else. So I do appreciate your understanding. Next up, Chris Barker to introduce our guest today. Chris?
Good morning, Rotarians. Happy spring. Isn't it great? We're going to have a little bit of snow today. All right. If you'd please join me in greeting our guests. If they would please stand up when I call their names. We have the lovely Nora Snyder, George's wife. Thank you for coming today. And then we have from Hudson Service Learning, we have co-teachers Lonnie Banner and Jamie Cosman. It's nice seeing you again. And we have two of their students. We have Abby Gore, who's been helping us with AV this month, and also Brianna Ott. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Chris. Next, Ron Strobel. A couple of minutes to update everybody on the gala.
Okay, the countdown to the gala has started. The letters went out last week, and some people are responding already. So please get out and see all your people. The easiest way to get something from them is see them in person. It's much better than waiting for them to call you or calling them on the phone. So please get out there and do that as soon as possible. If you do it this week, chances are they won't have tossed the letter into the circular file. So please, please, please get out there as soon as you can. Get the gifts rolling in. This is up to date. We do have 4 large packages already this year, and a few more just waiting on confirmation. But those are just the big live auction items, and it's the other couple hundred items that bring in a lot of money as well. So please get out and see all of your contacts this week. If you don't have your folder, please contact your team captain or team captains. Please contact your team members. So let's go. And next week we'll find Tom Tobin for making noise. Okay, so just so everybody knows, the letters are out. People have received them, so go do it. Thank you.
Hey, Ron. I'm a proud member of Zappy's Tars, and he's doing it the right way. I got a message this week. I got my folder, and we're ready to go, right?
Right.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Tom. We'll muster forward. The gala is always a big event. It's the primary fundraiser for our club, and I certainly appreciate everybody's efforts. Speaking of club efforts that impact the community, our Fine Day last month went to the Hudson Food Pantry, and we received a letter of thanks from the food pantry. Just wanted to share that with you. It says, thank you for your donation of $152 to the Hudson Food Pantry located at Rejoice Lutheran Church on Stowe Road. The food pantry is sponsored by the Hudson Community Service Association and serves families in need residing within the Hudson City School District. Ours is a client choice food pantry where each customer chooses what they want. Food is a personal choice, and we believe this concept offers a sign of respect to our clients. Your donation helps these families stretch their budgets and make ends meet. Once again, thank you for your kindness and caring concern for others. Together, we are providing meals and hope for many. So, kudos to the club for the continued work and service that we provide to the community. Next, Lonnie and Jamie, if you would introduce us to two of Hudson's finest young people, we would appreciate it.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope you're doing well. Just a couple of quick updates before we introduce two of our fantastic students. First off, we just accepted 90 new students into next year's service learning class, so we're very excited about that. And actually, we're going to be having Dan Williams' granddaughter in class next year, so we're very, very excited about that. And then also, 2 weeks ago, the class was able to raise almost $1,200 for 3 organizations, Operation Freedom Paws, Hope for Justice, which focuses on eliminating human trafficking, and Wounded Warriors through a philanthropy fundraiser and game day we did at the high school, and we're really excited about that. But this morning we've got the beautiful Bree and the beautiful Abby to talk to you a little bit about their site and about their college plans. So, Abby, would you like to go first, gorgeous?
Sure. Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning. My name is Abigail Gore. As some of you may know, I've been doing sound here. I'm a senior at Hudson High School as part of service learning. And in the fall, I'll be attending Kent State University in the honors program, majoring in international relations and a minor in business. So this semester, my site has been at David Bacon Head Start, which is similar to a preschool that we have in Hudson, but for like more poverty-stricken families. And I don't exactly have a specific perfect memory or something that really stood out to me. The whole experience has been so eye-opening and emotional for me because these young children come from, well, some of them come from families of abuse and a lot of neglect. So these children still come in with smiles on their faces and with utter joy in their hearts, and they are such inspirations to me, which seems funny to say, that 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds are an inspiration to almost a graduating senior, but they are, because they have no care in the world, and even in horrible circumstances, they are still joyous and happy and run around playing tag and paint and color. So for me, I've decided that my purpose this semester is not to be more so a help for the teachers, but to be kind of a parental figure and a loving figure for these children who don't experience that at home. So I'm kind of going with the idea that love is going to be contagious and that the love they give me, I plan on giving back. Thank you.
I'm going to move this down a little bit because I am very short. Good morning. My name is Brianna Ott, but I go by Bree because my parents have always called me Brianna and Brianna, so Bree is always a good compromise. I'm a senior at Hudson High School. I'm planning to go to Miami University. For my undergraduate degree, I'm going to do public health, and then I want to go to become an optometrist, so eyeglasses. I think that's pretty cool. This semester, I'm at a hospice, and I work with patients who have 6 months or less to live. And it's actually totally awesome. I love it so much. I think my favorite memory is just talking with them because it can be something so simple, just about talking about what your favorite flavor of ice cream is, or talking with them about, what they were wearing on their wedding day. Like, that's always really cool. But I think my favorite memory, so I have one patient, her name is Philomena. And she has the cutest little voice I've ever heard, and she likes to parrot. So every morning we'll say, "Oh, hey, Phil," and then she goes, "Hey, Phil," in that exact voice. and they'll be like, "How are you today? How are you today?" So every morning whenever I hear her say that, I always respond. I'm always like, "It's good morning," and she always pretends to be asleep, which she's not, but it's always really funny to be like, hey, Phil, and then she'll be like, what? But, so my favorite memory memory is always just hearing her little voice because it's honestly the most adorable voice I've ever heard. But all my patients are all special to me, and I have a different connection with every single one of them, whether I can have a full conversation with them or just ask them 1 or 2 questions. Yeah. That's my site experience.
Does anyone have any questions today? Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Bree, and thank you, Abby, for being here with us this morning. Any announcements from any members from the floor this morning? Okay, seeing none. George, if you would do the honors to introduce our speaker.
Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning, guests. I do have an announcement before I turn to the speaker. Ron Strobel, this will be news to you, but the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad this year for the oral auction will be offering a ride for 2 in the diesel engine. This is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we hope that goes well. Turning to our topic this morning, which is part of Technology Month, we were all taught in high school chemistry that matter exists in 3 states: solid, liquid, and gas. But it turns out actually that there is a 4th state of matter, which is known as liquid crystal. And liquid crystals sort of light up in a structure like you would expect of a solid, but they also flow like a liquid. And you probably know them best as the liquid crystal display in your smartphone or on your laptop, but they have many, many other uses as well. The Liquid Crystal Institute at Kent State University is at the forefront of research and commercialization of these exotic materials. Our guest today, as part of the Technology Month, is Dr. John West. He is interim director of the Liquid Crystal Institute and one of 3 distinguished university trustee professors, a position that provides broad support for his research interests. As a teacher and lecturer, he is also one of Kent State's matinee idols. Dr. West graduated with a BS degree in chemistry from the College of William and Mary and earned his master's and PhD from Carnegie Mellon University. After a stint in private industry, he joined the Liquid Crystal Institute as a senior fellow in 1984. He became associate director in 1987 and was a key player in securing National Science Foundation funding for the National Science and Technology Center for Advanced Liquid Crystal Optical Materials, ALCOM, or ALCOM for short. He established ALCOM's Industrial Partnership Program, which has grown to over 60 companies from around the globe. John holds 17 U.S. patents with another 4 pending, and he is the author of over 140 scientific papers. Much of his current research focuses on the use of liquid crystals in the flexible electronics industry, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to Dr. John West.
Great introduction, thank you. There will be. And so I was going to start out, the introduction was great because I wanted to kind of focus around the smartphone. And can everybody hear me? Is this okay? Good. So just think about the smartphone and the display in the smartphone. It's that display that really is based on inventions out of the Liquid Crystal Institute. And what's kind of interesting is I'm sort of speaking largely to an audience of a certain age today. So I think a lot of the stuff I'm talking about you remember. Because the innovation that happened, the first innovation at the Liquid Crystal Institute led to this smartphone. But it was the digital wristwatch, which was the big hot thing when all of us were probably, graduating from high school, entering into college. And it again was the liquid crystal display that allowed that to happen. That display was invented at Kent State University, and the company that made it was in Kent, Ohio. So the liquid crystal industry started here, and really, so it is what I want to talk about is that half century of innovation. and what's going on and where we're going next. And the one thing I wanted to dispel, I'm going to focus on liquid crystal displays. I mean, it's a topic. It's a $200 billion a year industry. From a business perspective, we could spend a couple more lectures on why that industry isn't here, why it's in the Pacific Rim. And I think it's something for all of us to consider for the next steps. And how do we recapture that? Because liquid crystals are indeed a phase of matter. They're not your display. They're used in your display. But they have huge applications beyond displays. The center that I ran was really focused on the whole display applications. I have to say, early 90s, we were the Liquid Crystal Institute, the only one in the world. And you could see that this technology was going to be this $200 billion a year industry. And we just found ourselves at the right place, right time, with National Science Foundation and a lot of other people wanting to, I say, throw money at us, but we were more than willing to receive their generous support during that time. So let me take kind of a stroll through history, and as we're all of a certain age, I wanted to kind of pick another group that has a similar history. If you look at when the Institute started, believe it or not, it's basically when these guys started. Their first concert was right around the time that the Institute started in 1965. And so I'm going to start with where we were at the same time. We weren't quite as cool as the Rolling Stones, but we were there for picking up. So in 1966, RCA was looking at, for example, a portable display. So now you're not using a CRT. You could use liquid crystals to do that. The technology that they developed really wasn't very successful. Had a lot of problems. And we started the Institute, and a guy by the name of Glenn Brown was responsible for starting the Liquid Crystal Institute at that point in time. And the invention that happened out of the Institute as a result of that initial team, that initial discovery, is the basis for the display in your smartphones. That whole industry is based on the general idea of how liquid crystals can be used to modulate light. So it was this understanding that was coming out in the early 60s that we had a technology that married really well, particularly with the semiconductor technology. So one of the things I'm teaching classes on innovation now. It's often not a single technology. It's how technologies come together. It's that synergy of bringing different technologies together that leads to an innovation that changes an industry. It was that combination of the computer chip that could do, at that time, just tell time. We thought that was really great, and add and subtract. So you threw away your slide rule and got a calculator that would run on a battery. I had to have a display. And so the liquid crystal answered that problem. It provided a display that made all that happen. And it was really this guy that saw this. And he was, I have to say, for my career, my inspiration. Because when he was at Kent in 1965, he'd been here for over a decade. And what he did was really important, I think, the way I look at technology and innovation, in that he didn't look at what everybody else is doing and try to follow them. He looked at what nobody else was doing, but what was important. And to have the confidence to realize, if I were to give a message, have the confidence of what's important, the confidence that you've done a little bit and you understand where things are, to say, nobody's heading here, but they should. And that was the innovation of the Liquid Crystal Institute at the time. It was also a time in the history of Ohio where we had the confidence as a university, as a state, as a region, to invest in that. To say, yeah, there is a future. Let me build an institute. Let me start doing this. This is a good idea. I think we should fund that. This guy's good. He was a good salesman, by the way. Just excellent from that standpoint. And he hired some young people at the time, and they set up a building off campus, actually. The first institute wasn't a terribly attractive building, and the whole idea was, if it failed, we could turn it into offices. It's offices now, but it's not because we failed. It was because it was too small, and we needed to move on. But a reasonable investment and a backup plan in case we were wrong. Fair enough. Brought on top academic guy from Europe, Al Saupe. He is recognized as one of the leaders in understanding liquid crystals. Brought this guy over from Europe to work. Jim Ferguson is the guy who invented the TN display. He came from Westinghouse in Pittsburgh at the time, which was a big electronics firm doing a lot of great work in Pittsburgh. Brought him here to work on this stuff. He had the ability also to say at that point in time, God, I've got this great new idea, I'm going to patent it, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to start a company. Pretty cool overall. And then this guy that I came to work for, Bill Doan, who I'll bring up again, was responsible for making all this happen. So an investment in people, a new technology, and picking an area that nobody else is doing. And today I'll stand anywhere, any place, and say that if you want to do liquid crystals, you need to be in Kent, Ohio. And it was by their vision that allowed us to do that. And I'm really proud of that opportunity. And I think as we move forward, that same kind of message of looking at what other people aren't doing. If you start out saying it's being done at Harvard, Stanford, and MIT, you've picked the wrong direction. Pick a direction that they're not doing what they should be. So that was the introduction. We kind of built the band. As we moved into the 70s, we kind of had the group together. Things were moving forward. The first commercial LCD came out in 1971. This company, Elitsko, Kent, Ohio. It's in the Smithsonian. And by the way, Jim Ferguson didn't get the Nobel Prize. That's for the academic side of things. He got what's called the Lehman Prize from MIT, $500,000. So it's a substantial prize for one of the most important innovations of the last century, recognized for doing that. And this is it. And it's that technology, that ability to make an image with very low power. At the time, it was kind of, the technology, and it still is. People saw, I did what I wasn't supposed to do. You told me not to press that button, and I just had to do it. It goes with science. We just do it naturally, You said you would believe it. So, and one of the big messages, and from this standpoint, is it does take time. It does take long-term investment, and it takes patience in order to do that. We don't have that $200 billion a year industry here. And we can talk about that, but it did start here with this guy. It took a total of, 36 years to go from that initial display to where the LCD finally surpassed the old cathode ray tube. You'll remember 15 years ago, we were all pitching those as quick as we could, going to Best Buy and buying the TV we could put on the wall. And we went through a series of buying bigger ones, better ones, higher resolution ones. It's been an interesting move on that. I have to say, though, this is a mature industry already. This is a commodity item. It's not where the future's going. It's the same thing. Don't build an institute to do this. It's the wrong institute to be doing right now. This one's gone by. But we spent the 70s doing that, getting that industry started, becoming the lead in doing it, bringing everybody together. And it was Glenn Brown that pushed us all forward. There was funding from the National Science Foundation. DARPA was funding us. A lot of technology moving forward. By the time I joined in 1984, it was kind of clear that this was going to happen. It was clear there was going to be a TV on the wall. It wasn't clear when. It took longer than I thought. But it was pretty clear that LCDs were going to do this. And at that time, this guy, Bill Doan, who I came to work for, this is why I came to Kent State, was to work for Bill Doan, had this vision of moving forward and taking the institute to the next stage. And he was really good at building the next team. Built a new institute at that point in time. And he invented something called polymer dispersed liquid crystals. And I have to be just a little bit of geek in this whole process. So we talk about liquid crystals and different phases of matter. So the unique thing with liquid crystals is they're a molecule that's sort of like a rigid rod. It's got a little bit of a flexible tail to it. Needs that flexible tail in order to keep it from being just a solid crystal. Because of the flexible tail, when it melts, it still all points in the same direction, but it flows. Okay? So now it looks different according to what the orientation of the matter is. And the key thing with liquid crystals is a very small electric field can change that orientation. So now I can have the liquid crystal sandwiched between two substrates. If you thought of yourself in between two pieces of glass, we're going to make a display. The liquid crystal can be changed according to whether I put a positive and negative charge on or not. And it changes the optics. That's what Jim Ferguson invented. And after that, we've just been improving, and developing the industry. And Bill Doan added that to polymers. Now, not just a pure liquid crystal, he actually came up with a way of putting it inside a polymer film. So now I make windows that switch between scattering and clear. That's really important for the next stage of making flexible electronics. So I've got a liquid in between two pieces of glass. That's not great. It breaks. I mean, everybody knows about your cell phone. Drop it on the floor, it breaks. It's got some problems. I can't press on it. It'd be really nice if it were flexible. Maybe I could roll it up. This is the technology that's going to make that happen. And actually, I'll point out this. Bill Doan started a company that's now in Brimfield, making the first roll-to-roll liquid crystal display on plastic substrates. And you can buy it. Go up to Costco, you can buy it. I'll show it to you later on. The one thing I wanted to point out was, once again, building a team. So you talk about technology, but it's really the team you put together. And Bill invented this technology, got GM to fund it, brought in like $800,000. We took an upfront fee of $800,000, but put it right into research. He built this group. And I want to point out a few people. And Bree, I've got one I want you to meet. So this is Bill Doan. John Erdman runs Hannah Microdisplays in Twinsburg. Cool guy. Joe Whitehead is the provost in North Carolina University. And Greg Crawford is president of Miami. So this guy was able to just bring a great team together. And I'm in the back. That's me way back. So, and these PDLCs were ideal for roll-to-roll processing using plastic substrates. It was the idea of the next generation of displays. There's a whole regional effort now looking at combining polymers and liquid crystals. How do we make all that work for the next stage? Ton of things we can do with it. So we found ourselves in the 90s with the display industry coming. We became, as you mentioned, the National Science Foundation Science and Technology Center for Advanced Liquid Crystal and Optical Materials. Every company in liquid crystals wanted to be part of this. It was cool. I put the industrial partnership program together. It was nice to be in a position where people were knocking. I didn't have to knock on their door. They knocked on mine. I think that's half the trick. Marketing isn't going knocking on doors. It's doing something to get them to knock on yours. And they did that. It was great. And through that process, we built a collaboration. And that'd be the other thing. It's not just one technology. It's collaborations that come together. Case Western Reserve and the University of Akron, bringing the power of polymers to the responsiveness of liquid crystals. And that's what we did. Pulled this together and brought in, over the next decade, over $60 million. Funding, industrial support, sponsorship, leading research in the world. I used to make the comment that if you were at Samsung, you would, they'd say, gee, we'd like to come to Kent, how do we get there? You'd say you'd have to come to Cleveland. You'd go, where is it? Is that close to Kent? It was always nice to hear. And was rated as the only world-class center in the world working in this field. So that investment, that patience over time, that knowing that this area is going to be important, and that continuing investment put us at the right place at the right time. And we brought a ton of companies. And one of the things we did at that time, and one of the problems we had, so I'd mentioned that the industry's all overseas. How do I keep from just being a generation of ideas that goes overseas? The big criticism would be, well, geez, we're putting all this money into you, and then you just ship it off to Samsung, and they make the products and make all the money. Why would I do that? So we've been looking at starting a lot of companies in the region that resulted out of this. And they're here now. There is a core of the next generation of companies building a manufacturing infrastructure and growing at this stage. Kent Displays, Hannah Microdisplays in Twinsburg, large companies working on flexible substrates. Co-Adna is a company that did beam steering. That one actually went public, and they're gone. They didn't stay. Alpha Micron locally does switchable eyewear. Philips Crystalloid was out of the whole group. Just a number of different companies in Northeast Ohio working in this area, along with some of the big names that you would expect in the field, all working together and meeting at the Liquid Crystal Institute to set our research directions. It was just an ideal situation. And as I say, we did a bunch of startups that came out of this, probably important, most important for regional economic development, films that helped in the industry, and positioned us well then to hit into the 2000s. We're getting time that we probably ought to start a new band, but the old guys are still kind of there. We're pursuing innovative technologies and products, flexible devices, so where we're looking to go is on plastic substrates. That's one area that's maturing, doing fairly well. You'll see from the Institute we've already kind of moved beyond that. Looking further down the road, produce electronic devices on flexible plastic substrates. And let me just real quickly point out why that's important. So if you make your cell phone, you start with a piece of glass. If you want to take it from a printing process, it's like the old printing press. Take a piece of paper and put it in, pull it down, take the paper out, put the next one in. It's a one-off process. We want to move to modern printing of roll to roll. Big roll of plastic and just have it roll out. We have the opportunity. I did it again. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we have the process to change the whole manufacturing technology. And there's companies in the region that are doing just that. We started a regional consortium called Flex Matters, supported in Northeastern Ohio. That's grown into smart electronics. And I'll highlight what a couple companies are doing there. My startup is called Phytos. If you get a chance, I'm not going to talk much about it, but another technology. So all focused on this area of flexible electronics out of what we were doing. Opened Air Centennial Research Park. This is Alpha Micron doing the switchable eyewear. Is located there. They're working more. And where this flexible has gone is wearable technologies. It's where you guys ought to be looking at, I would say, is look at wearables. Kent Displays is making something called a boogie board. It's an electronic writing tablet made in Brimfield, Ohio, shipped around the world. There, I don't know, tens of millions are being sold every year. Go to Costco, Best Buy, whatever, please buy your boogie board. It has a unique writing experience. It's a market that they have developed totally on their own. It's also, from an innovative technology and a business perspective, they weren't able to get started by going to the big companies that you would normally think of. Oh, I don't know whether this is right. They then did the whole thing themselves. They thought, if we're going to do this, we got to do it ourselves. They designed the product, they do the packaging, they do the electronics, they put it all together, and they distribute. So the distribution's going out of warehouses here, Asia, Australia, around the world. In order to do that, and they've been very successful. They got the Exporter of the Year Award, Small Business Exporter of the Year Award in the state of Ohio last year for their exporting of high technology out of Brimfield. So it's just kind of cool to see what can happen. In the 10s, we're still going, we're still alive, and we're sort of looking at the future. This is the company that I'm dealing with. As I say, I'll move on, we can talk about that. I do want to end sort of where we're going for the next steps, that hopefully we all get to see in where this goes, but it's now reaching beyond disciplines and reaching beyond science for the collaboration of looking how you put something into the marketplace. So I'm working with people at Podiatric Medicine, myself, and the School of Fashion at Kent State. It's kind of interesting when you look at collaborations and how you make everything come together. And what we're doing is focusing on wearable technologies, but we're actually taking about 4 steps back and trying to make something very simple. One of the things that liquid crystals do is the right material changes color with temperature. So it's a thermometer. It's also can measure changes and patterns of temperature patterns. And we realized, and this was actually research that was done in the 70s, you could see the start of a diabetic foot complication as a change in color of your foot. If you painted your foot black and then sprayed liquid crystal on it. Well, from a diagnostic standpoint, that's kind of messy. It's not exactly what you want to do. And we started thinking about, how could we make this simpler? What could we do to make all this work? And what came together was this combination of liquid crystals and polymers that we were doing for flexible electronics, but we realized we could encapsulate the liquid crystal and spray it on fabrics. So now you don't have to paint your foot black, you can just have a sock you could put on. And see whether you've got a foot ulcer starting. If you've got diabetes, you want to be keeping a really close track of that. It's one of the quickest ways, the largest mortality out of diabetes is when this complication arises. So if you can catch it early, I can have this sock, maybe I take a picture of it with my cell phone, send it to my doctor, and they can look and see you got something coming. The other one is that we're looking at is for thrombosis. So if you get bedridden, you have trouble with a blood clot. What would happen if you had a blood clot? You're going to get a big profile where that vein is or artery is blocked. It'll show up as a. So now the nurse walks in your hospital room and goes, "You got a problem." You know, very simple technology. We've patented this. There's a range of things behind it that pulls all this together, but it's where we're looking for the next steps. And nobody else is doing this right now. So it's almost too easy. I mean, the problem I'm having is people are going to go, "Oh, well, that's easy." And it's like, yeah, it is easy, but we're going to do it. And also in fashion, this is a tie that changes color and has some neat aspects to it. I want to get a hold of Hermes and see if we can do scarves and stuff that way. The fashion school is incorporating this into new fabrics and new clothing. How do we use this in a number of different ways? What is going to be the killer app that takes it into the marketplace? And so what's next? And that's kind of the big question, and where, that's probably where I'm going to end as far as, my career. So you guys, you hopefully are going to decide what's next with all of this. And I just wanted to say thanks.
Questions?
Sure.
Are any of these things patentable, or do you just not patent them and keep it a secret?
That's a good question, actually. It used to be that you patent everything. We had this idea. So Jim Ferguson left, the first one, left the university, patented it outside the university, tried to sell it to somebody that funded his research. They came back to the university and said, "Didn't we fund that?" The court battle happened in Cleveland, and it was settled out of court. There was quite a bit of money that came out of that initial one, but to be frank, that patent expired before the real money was made. We've had a lot of patents since then. The patent on the switchable, the polymer stuff, Bill Doan did when I first came. Within my first 6 months, I did a patent. We made some good money off that. I learned to fly. I still have the boat. So there have been some that way. In my company now, I'm having to work overseas. I'm not patenting everything. I've got the basic idea patented, so it's how do you protect your know-how? And I don't think I want to patent everything. So it's really a judgment call. It's a good question, though, and depends on where you're going to do it. Yes?
Two questions for you. Alpha Micron, I believe you said. Now, that was a startup company out of Kent.
Yep.
I know Jimmy, Tattoo Jimmy. You know Jimmy and his brother? They've been working.
They work there?
Yeah.
I probably do.
Long hair Jimmy.
Yeah, I do know Jimmy.
Wise brother or something like that.
He's a good guy.
And specifically, what does Alpha Micron do within the liquid crystal?
They're doing technology that, A, works on plastic substrates. They can work on curved surfaces. And because of that, they can do lenses. So they're making essentially automatic dimmable eyewear. Military is very interested in it for soldiers, so they got a lot of funding initially out of DARPA to make that happen. They sold UVic ski goggles, does it, and now they've got motorcycle helmets and visors. They're also moving into sunroofs of cars and larger applications.
Are they privately held, or have they?
Privately, totally privately held. He's done it with no venture money at all.
We have a question. Doctor, help me with my memory a little bit, because I go back a long way. But back in 1960,
yeah,
I was with Univat, and we were doing a lot of basic research on liquid crystal. And there was a lot of things that are very deep in my mind. I can't exactly remember, but it seems to me we were doing something with liquid crystal with regard to memory. Is there a role for that to play in memory?
Do you mean individual
No,
memory?
Memory for computers.
Yes, that's how I got started in it.
Because it was liquid crystal memories that I remember.
You can have a bistable, so you can switch it between two states. It's how I got interested in liquid crystals in the company I was working with.
So that goes back a long ways.
It
then.
does. It does.
Thank
I may
you.
have read some of the same papers you did.
Thank you so much for bringing this back to me. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk now about like the new iPhone, new Samsungs, and they're talking about curved.
Yep.
Now, is that going to be polymer or glass?
Right now it's glass. They're playing around with it.
Does a polymer have a place in that? Because it seems like it sure would.
It does. And the question ends up being how that technology is going to go. There's a bet on OLEDs, too. You probably heard about OLEDs. And the Samsung phone, for example, is an OLED. OLED has some advantages on flexible, and liquid crystals has some. I think that's a battle yet to be fought. And I don't know where to put your bet, to be honest, on that. But yeah, the flexible is going to be important. I think the roll-to-roll is going to be on many applications of liquid crystals. It may not own the whole thing. And certainly on the wearable stuff that I'm talking about, it's got a huge application of liquid crystals.
But there's a whole lot of Kent State research that's generating a whole lot of private industry and startup companies,
right,
scale-ups and whatnot. How does Kent State protect its financial position in all of this?
I think that's a delicate balance. I think if the university is too worried about protecting its interest, the technology doesn't move effectively out of the university. And so when I was VP of research, I was right in the middle of that. I think the university needs to have a user-friendly option for getting a company started and an ability to gain the reward if the company really hits it big. I think the main reward that the university provides for the state and for the region is not out of the money that comes back to the university, but in starting the company in the first place and the job return. If we expect it to come out of royalties, that's a hard one overall. I think that should happen for really big technologies. For the small ones, you end up, half the problem is writing that first agreement and also putting yourself in a position where the company is attractive from a venture capital standpoint. And so it's a balance. Or a big company coming in. UNIVAC wants to come and do research at the university. We can make the intellectual property issues so onerous that they just turn around and leave. Or we can give it all away, and we shouldn't do either. But I think we've got to work out a technique. One of the things we do with companies, and let me give you one example. UNIVAC comes and wants to do research at the Liquid Crystal Institute. First one ends up being they want to just use our facilities. I'd say pay for our facilities, you do it, go live long and prosper, I'm happy. Pay a reasonable fee. You could come and say, I want you to do some specific thing. I'll say, tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. Same thing, take it, go live long and prosper. You come and ask me, I'm not sure how to do this. Can you give me an idea? And I go, well, we're partners, at this stage. And we're going to have to talk about exchanging this. Now, if you're going to support my research, give me a good overhead, I'll say, you get a non-exclusive, royalty-free license to practice this. But if it's valuable, I'm going to go talk to your competitor and try to make some money off of it. If you'd like an exclusive, we'll talk. So it's kind of a reasonable starting point that we can get off but you can get caught up in this. And I think at a lot of universities, I still don't think we do it right. I think we turn off companies and make it difficult to move from laboratory to marketplace. As an entrepreneur, it took way too long for myself to negotiate the rights to the license of the technology I invented, I have to say. So, anyway.
I saw something recently, and I don't know whether it's real today or whether it's one of the things in the future. And that is, it was a house that had walls that they said eventually you could, instead of repainting, you just
change the color.
You just change the color or put up wallpaper if you want to.
I think that's where we're going.
Is that
I think that's where it's
or is
going.
that tomorrow?
That's tomorrow.
Okay.
That's when we start. Let me give you an example for an audience of a certain age. The idea that you had to have an electronic display at your gas pump. It's like, really? I'm going to watch TV at the gas pump? Why would I want to do that? Displays have gotten so cheap that they're just everywhere. They're ubiquitous. But there's still these glass, they're in my parking meters now. I've got a connection and all of that. It's because that became very cheap to do, to make this. If it becomes cheap that I can, now I'm not projecting that this whole thing is this flexible and is a display. that happens. And it'll happen real quickly. So it's that supply-demand killer app that gets you started in that direction so a company can make a ton of money and then move up that innovation curve. If you talk about, I'll come back, I'll give you a lecture on how we got from the wristwatch on the way up through. It was that laptop computer. You may remember early 90s, laptop computers, greatest thing. I can carry this thing around, terrible display. Yeah, compacts and all, terrible display. It was like this green on blue, whatever, and you could type and you could read numbers and letters, and that was it. You paid a lot for that display, and a lot of companies made a lot of money off of doing that. And there was a huge competition then to move up that innovation curve. And if you could produce that next one, you'd make a lot of money going to black and white, going to color, going to video, going to a little larger. So the companies built the manufacturing infrastructure off of us initially willing to pay a lot of money for a really bad display. Then, once it got big enough, I'd throw away my desktop monitor, that big thing we all used to have, for the LCD, about the same size. What that did was I can now plug it in, I got a backlight, and I want it bigger, want it bigger, and I want it bigger. That was the intermediate to where it got to the size where, well, I'm going to throw away my TV and use my desktop monitor as my TV. And that was a whole nother bigger. And now you guys don't care. You really don't care. You're happy with what's at Best Buy. Are you going to buy a 4K? Maybe. I tell you, they all invested. They all thought you were going to buy 3D. Samsung was committed. You were going to buy 3D. It was nobody cared. Nobody cared at all. So, and curved. They're trying to sell you curved right now. I don't think anybody cares, to tell you the truth. I may be wrong on that one. The other one on markets is Apple wants to sell you a watch so bad. They want you to buy. Any of you guys had the watch? One.
Maybe watch that one.
But it is not the everybody's got to have one. Google a few years ago wanted to sell you the Google glasses. So it's this killer app moving up through that will happen. I'm not sure what the intermediate is. Sorry, I went off on a long answer on that. But.
A question. So we're in the time when they're relooking at the federal budget and relooking at all the spending. I know you're getting a lot of private sector investment, but what would be your case for the U.S. government investing in the pure research?
The 90s and the 2000s and what our parents did. So I'm going to just give you my own opinion at this stage. I am so disappointed in where we are right now. I just can't believe it. It makes me want to spit. That we have an infrastructure that we're just letting go. And we are focused on the immediate return. It is, and we seem to be at a stage where we just don't believe anymore. And I don't get it. So I will be in the march in Washington on the 22nd. I'm here to pass that message. If there's a message it could be, I can't, angers me. So different than when I was a kid. What my parents handed me, I'm not handing to the next generation. Yeah, we ought to be ashamed. Sorry. No, you look at the funding that's going on. Look at the latest budget. It's I'm speechless. We've been a decade now of this, and it's going away. Look at your universities; they're fighting over a smaller and smaller pile, and it's discouraging. It's discouraging to the new scientists. It's discouraging across the board.
It does seem like not only this, but a lot of the innovations came out of this initial kind of pure research funding.
It does. It does. And if I went back, it's now that I've said my piece, go back, it's Glenn Brown at the beginning, having the confidence to invest in something like that. To see that there is an application, but if we demanded a return in 5 years, or to measure it in we got into a measuring frenzy in the 80s. It was a really good thing. Let's have metrics. How do we measure everything? How does it get done? There are some things that are long-term that if you apply that short-term metrics on, you just never invest. And we have a lead. We still have it. We still have a lead. Trust me, you go overseas, everybody wants to come to our universities. It's not going to last much longer, though. It's changing really, really quickly, and I really am concerned about that as far as where we're going. Yeah, it's definitely a different day than when I started. It was just a ton of energy, and where do you want to go, and how can I help you get there? And I think we need to do that more and more. And funding is harder and harder to get. If you look at the university, it's getting really much bleaker right now, and has been for a while. Last one was, the stimulus. There was sort of a bump there for a bit, and kind of a bit of a feeding frenzy that we all kind of went after, but that was an end of a long kind of disappointment in where things are going, particularly the basic research side of things, because you can't always predict what's going to be the next important innovation. It's kind of fun. I did this course called "Be Smarter Than Your Phone." The invention of the semiconductor, the Schottky, that's a trillion-dollar-a-year industry now going on based on basic research from generations ago. Yeah. Anyway, I hope we can reinvest in that. That would be really cool to see. Sorry, didn't mean to end on a down note. Thanks. Oh, no, sure, my pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. West. Fascinating topic, and
thanks, my pleasure.
Real piece of important information for Northeast Ohio. It's quite frankly, I didn't know a lot of what was going on at Kent State on this topic.
That's why I'm here.
Thanks this morning for our greeters, Jim Ahern and Pete Opperman, the audiovisual setup crew, Den Rich, Tom Page, Tom Tobin, James Field, and Ron Barnhouse. Thank you, gentlemen. Abby, thank you very much for being here again this week to help us out. And today's Rotabuck. The payout is $11, and the jackpot is $309. Nora, if you would. Last four digits, 9104. 9104. Oh, Mr. Wooldridge.
Good job. You're always pitching.
There's a black one in there, I promise. And you got it! Okay, so we will start a new jackpot again next week, and Ben, you'll need to see Mr. Rexroad for the jackpot. Okay, reminder, next week's speaker is Dr. Eric Amos, Dean of the College of Polymer Science and Polymer Engineering at the University of Akron, continuing our theme of technology for the month. Closing today with a couple of thoughts. The first one, I think, is pretty appropriate for Technology Month, and especially, a burgeoning technology like we've heard about today. And I'll let you guess who said this. One of Ohio's favorite sons. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Thomas Edison. And the second, from one of the preeminent statesmen of the 20th century, Winston Churchill. All the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word. Freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. And with that, we will conclude today's meeting. Thanks everyone for being here today, and thanks everyone for watching.
Great meeting.